When we review a sales call, what do we usually focus on? The words, right? The transcript. But honestly, that's like trying to understand an entire orchestra by just reading the sheet music. You miss the magic. Today, we're going to dive into why the information that really drives outcomes is often completely invisible when you're just looking at one conversation at a time. So let me just ask this right up front. What if the key to a successful conversation is something you can't actually see or hear in a single call? What if the real drivers of success are hidden in these tiny, subtle patterns that only, and I mean only, show up when you analyze thousands of interactions at once? Think about it. We tend to focus on the obvious stuff, the words people use, their tone of voice, maybe a really long pause. That's what we hear. But underneath all that, there are these powerful, non-conscious behaviors happening. Things like linguistic style matching, where people start to subtly mirror each other's language. Or interpersonal coordination, the little ways they sync up their behavior. These are the hidden patterns that actually predict success. And this gets us to the core problem, something we can call the single call blind spot. The big issue is that simply listening harder to one call isn't the answer. It's never going to reveal these deeper patterns. The solution isn't better listening. It's a better way of seeing. A lot of this happens through a process that scientists call interactive alignment. Now, this sounds complicated, but it's really just our brain's automatic, non-conscious way of getting on the same page with someone. We coordinate our language and behavior without even thinking about it, just to create a kind of shared reality. It's a shortcut to understanding. And this alignment is happening on so many different levels at the same time. We're talking about word choice, sentence structure, our understanding of the situation, even our body movements and the rhythm of our speech. There is no way a human being can consciously track all of this in real time. It's just too much, it's happening way too fast, and most of it is completely subconscious. And to put a number on that complexity, get this. One study had to analyze 335, yes, 335 distinct behavioral features for every single thing a person said, just to figure out what was important. That's the staggering amount of data packed into every single conversation. So here's the bottom line. Because all this alignment stuff in the automatic, it's happening outside our conscious awareness. You just can't tell a manager to listen for it on a call. That's like asking them to consciously control their own heartbeat. It's a fundamental background process, and you can't just will yourself to notice it. Okay, so besides the fact that these behaviors are basically invisible, there's another huge flaw with reviewing single calls, and that's the problem of context. A single data point, no matter how interesting it seems, is really just an anecdote. There's a concept from sociology called indexicality that explains this perfectly. It basically means that an action's meaning isn't fixed. For example, an interruption, while in one call it might be rude, but in another it could be a sign of real excitement and engagement. The meaning depends completely on the context. The sociologist John Heritage put it beautifully. Each action is context-shaped and context-renewing. What that means for us is that what works in one call isn't some magic blueprint for success you can just copy and paste. It's a single moment in time, not a universal rule. And this right here, this is the turning point. One call, that's an anecdote. It's a good story, maybe. But analyzing thousands of calls, now that is data. That's how you go from a subjective opinion to objective, hard evidence about what actually consistently works. So, how do we make that leap from anecdotes to evidence? Well, this is where AI comes in. You can think of it as a pattern detective. It's the tool that can finally sift through conversations at a massive scale and surface all those invisible drivers of success that are just impossible for a human to spot. Let me give you a really cool example. Researchers in a speed dating study measured something called language style matching. Again, that's how subconsciously people mirror each other's language. And what they found was amazing. When people's styles matched, the odds of mutual romantic interest, a successful date, jumped by over 3 times. An invisible pattern with a huge impact. Or how about this one from psychotherapy? The physical synchrony of body movements between a therapist and a patient was directly correlated with how the patient felt about their alliance. And even crazier, the synchrony of just their head movements could actually predict whether the patient would achieve their therapy goals. These are tiny, non-conscious signals that predict real-world success. Now, I know a common concern here, especially for an executive, might be, okay, so are we just trying to build robots that mimic people? Are we trying to replace that human touch with some kind of imitation? And the answer to that is a hard no. Absolutely not. In fact, trying to just mimic someone can seriously backfire. There's this fascinating study on chatbots that discovered what they called the adaptation paradox. They found that a chatbot that was constantly changing its style to match the user was actually seen as less personal and less satisfying than a chatbot that was just consistent. So what that paradox shows us is that the goal isn't simple imitation. Raw mimicry can feel weird and inconsistent. The real value comes from using AI to get insights, to find out which behaviors are consistently effective so that humans, real people, can apply them with good judgment and authenticity. This really sets up a new kind of partnership. Step 1, the AI does what it's great at. It analyzes massive amounts of data. Step 2, it surfaces the statistically backed patterns, the what that correlates with success. And then, step 3, humans do what we do best. We apply our judgment, our context, and our strategy to understand the why and figure out how to use that information. So what does this all mean for a business? Well, it's a huge shift in thinking. It's about moving from viewing conversation analysis as just reactive monitoring, which is really a cost center, to seeing it as a tool for proactive mastery. And that is a true value driver. You see, the old way of just reviewing single calls is like looking for a needle in a haystack. It's slow, it's inefficient, and it's based on anecdotes. You're just kind of hoping you stumble upon some coachable moment. The new way is to stop looking for individual needles. Instead, you use technology to understand the science of the entire haystack. It's about analyzing everything to understand the fundamental properties that actually make up a successful interaction. And that's really the key takeaway here. It's the shift from being reactive, catching mistakes after they've already happened, to being proactive. It's about identifying the core components of what your best people do and then building a system to scale those winning behaviors across your whole organization. So I'll leave you with this question to think about for your own organization. You are sitting on a gold mine of data in every customer conversation you have. What winning patterns are hidden inside, just waiting for the right tools to bring them to light?